Hey everyone, it's Liz here. So I'll take my glasses off. The glare off my glasses you can see in the phone that I'm recording on. Sorry I haven't done a video sooner. Typical EDS issues. So my last video is like an intro. This is going to be a video about my EDS. And then my next video will be about my POTS, which I'll post just before Christmas. So my EDS was basically, it was not diagnosed first, it was diagnosed as a result of my POTS symptoms. I was lucky enough to see sorry, my hand's really shaking, to see Professor Matthias. I had to go privately because the same old story of nobody would listen. Everyone thought I was making it up. Everyone thought I was anxious or stressed or hypochondriac and all that kind of thing. And luckily my POTS doctor knew about the link with EDS, and he referred me to see Professor Graham at UCLH, and I got diagnosed on the Baton scale. I scored 8 out of 9. The only thing I can't do is put my hands flat on the floor. Probably because I've got a bit of a belly, so couldn't do that, but I could do all the other things. And I had blood tests, and then that was it. And I was referred for physio. And that was in January 2009. I kind of wasn't too bad at that stage. I'd had various different injuries, especially in my knee. I'd pulled and torn tendons and ligaments quite a lot, and not known why. And it all made sense when they told me the symptoms of EDS and about when I was younger and how I was growing up. I might have bruised easily and fallen over a lot and had bad handwriting and growing pains, and it just all made sense to me. Especially as it started around just after puberty started with me. So, yeah, it was quite a shock, especially as I found out it was genetic. And for me, it wasn't straightforward because I'm adopted. So, I didn't know at that stage what was going on because I wasn't speaking to my birth mum, and I wasn't getting on well with my half sister, and I didn't know my aunties and uncles back then, who I do now. But it turns out my half brother has it. Probably my birth mum does, from the sounds of it, and a lot of my aunties do. But they've never officially been diagnosed with it. So I had lots of physio, which was really good because the lady doing my physio was studying her PhD and specialising in EDS. So she was learning a lot about it, and so I was kind of like a test subject. And she was great, but then she felt she couldn't do any more. So then I got referred back to the clinic, EDS clinic, and they put me on some painkillers. They put me on tramadol and paracetamol, and that was it really. And then about 2 years later, I was getting worse actually. My joints were getting worse and worse, and I found I'd fall a lot, and it was just not great. So I got referred by my EDS doctor to the pain management clinic inpatient thingy at the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital in Stanmore. And I had to wait a couple of months to get an initial appointment. Then they had to assess me to see if I was suitable for the course. And then when I was, they then had to assess me again to see whether I would stay in the hospital or in the hotel. And because of all my POTS symptoms and the fact my health wasn't great, I stayed in the hospital, which turned out to be great because I was surrounded by other people with EDS. They tend to group EDS patients together. So I had about 7 other EDS patients in the ward with me. There were only about 4 other people who had different joint problems. One had fibromyalgia, one had bad arthritis, one had Marfan's, and things like that. And it was great. We had daily physio, daily OT, we had swimming once a week, we had sports once a week, which was like not too much. It was like skittles and table tennis, and people could sit in their wheelchairs and play if they needed to, or sit in a chair, and it was all about pacing. And we had group sessions Where he talks about how to pace yourself and how to not overdo things, methods to help you cope with pain, the psychological aspect of it as well, relaxation, loads of topics and stuff like that. And I found that massively useful, and I put it into practice, and for about 6 to 8 months afterwards it was really great. And I became really active, and I started doing Zumba at home, and I lost quite a bit of weight. And then I ended up overdoing the Zumba and hurt my ankle, and just from tearing tendons. So I was out of action for a while and fell back into deconditioning and was too scared to go back to Zumba. So I basically stopped. Everything kind of crumbled and I was a mess. And so I went back to my 1 year review catch up thing, I think, and said that things were alright, but I was in my wheelchair now by this time, and I couldn't self-propel because my shoulders by this time had subluxed. My worst subluxing is my shoulders. Then I dislocate my metatarsal in my foot, and also sometimes my fingers and my jaw, and my ribs. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then they referred me to my local wheelchair service, and I got a powered wheelchair to use inside, which wasn't much use because I was semi-alright inside. I got around with a crutch, or 2 crutches depending how I was. But eventually, after much persuading, I managed to get an outdoor power chair, which was used for indoor and outdoor, and that gave me so much freedom, because by this stage my POTS was a lot worse as well, and I couldn't stand up for more than a few minutes without feeling faint, and then my EDS was making me ache, and I would just feel terrible. So I've upgraded since that one. I've got a specially made wheelchair now, which has got lumbar support, pressure relief cushions, and all sorts of fancy things on it. So yeah, I've noticed over the years I've got worse. Since 2009, I've got probably 50% worse. My mobility is pretty much zero. Around the house, I'm alright, but we live in a bungalow. We had to wait about 1.5 years for this place that we're in now, because it's through social housing, and it was it's basically, because it's a bungalow, it's got lots of rails, it's got a wet room, so it's very mobility friendly. There's a ramp up to the door and things like that, so I can get my wheelchair in and out easily, but there's no access in the back door, so it's a bit frustrating. And when we moved in, there was nothing here. We had to paint all the walls because they'd taken everything, because they had to strip it back because the person who lived here used to smoke, and it was a bit filthy as well. So all the floors were taken up, so we had to, luckily we'd saved quite a bit, so we'd had to get new floors and just all the appliances, everything. It was really expensive, but it was great to move in with my partner because he's now my primary carer. Although he works full time, when he is here, he looks after me, he cooks, he helps me with chores, and at the weekends as well. My power chair's given me a lot of freedom. I go into town on my own now because we're only 5 minutes from town. We can go in the car because I've got this June this year I got a disabled access car. I didn't get it through because I'm on DLA, higher rate mobility, but I didn't get the Motability car because it's like £300 a month, which was all of my allowance, and we couldn't afford to be without that. And I found a fairly newish car for about £3,000, which you could buy straight off, and that was it, and it was yours to keep forever. So I found that was more affordable, and it has a ramp built into the back of it, and the chair goes straight into the back of the car, so it enables us to go on holidays, day trips. I can go see my parents, I can go shopping on my own without having to have my partner with me. It's really good. So that's good. And I'm also, obviously, I get free tax on my car because I'm in higher rate mobility. So if you didn't know that, that is something to know. Only in the UK, as far as I know. What else? So that's mobility wise. My EDS has caused many other problems, ones that I listed in the first video. I found over the years it's got worse, so I'm dreading the next 10, 20 years to see how much it progresses, and whether it does progress more. It seems I'm stiffening up. I'm also aching a lot more, and so I'm making a big conscious effort to do more if I can. Trouble is, because of my EDS, I've got a slipped disc in L5S1, so it's frustrating because I can't do any exercise. I'm doing physio exercises, of course, but I can't do any physical exercise like walking or swimming because of my back and also my shoulders. And I've just subluxed. On Friday, I woke up in agony thinking I was having a heart attack because I had extreme pain and crushing feeling on my chest and my shoulder. And I got rushed to hospital, and they did ECGs and tests and blood tests and stuff, and found that it wasn't a heart problem. I likely had dislocated a rib and it had gone back, but then my costochondritis had flared up. So now all my sternum and my ribs are being stretched apart and are really inflamed, and so it's quite painful during the day. Breathing in heavily hurts. Driving really hurts. So I'm trying not to drive. And sleeping, I have to sleep on my front like Superman because I can't lie on my back because of the pressure on my chest. So it sucks at the moment, really. My EDS is fairly bad. Yeah, and as I said, it's affected everything. It's affected my bladder. It's affected my organs where I've had to have operations to take organs out, like my gallbladder and my appendix. It affects my breathing. It affects my throat and my swallowing. It affects my eyesight. It affects my hearing. It affects my joints. It affects my stomach. So, yeah, it's pretty rubbish, really. But there you go. If you have EDS, you know what it's like. So yeah, so that's kind of me and my EDS story, really. I'm a member of EDS UK, and I'm also an area coordinator for Peterborough. So I volunteer for EDS UK, and we raise money as well. So I do a lot of stuff for EDS UK, and through the years of having EDS, speaking to people about it and learning stuff from conferences, I feel I've got quite a good knowledge of EDS and its things it can cause. So this year, when I sent all my Christmas cards out, I put EDS official leaflets inside the Christmas cards and sent them off so that all my friends and family get to know about EDS. Because if I put a link on Facebook and say, go and look at this, most people won't because they can't be bothered. Or they just don't care. But they can't avoid the leaflets, so, yeah. So that's it, really. I'd love to hear in the comment section below about your EDS, how you were diagnosed and where you live. And I will talk to you soon about my POTS. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye.